we employed enormous numbers of people because the tea estates, most tea estates had about 1,500 people working for them. And so they all had dependents, and it was a very good life because they got houses and they got healthcare and they got education and a living wage. And so all their friends and relations used to come up from the Low Country to take part in this great bonanza. It was a very good old Scottish sort of parochial sort of thing. They looked after everybody, and the planters, there were 120 white planters when I was little on this vast area of mountain. A lot of it had been opened up for tea, but a lot of it was still wild, full of game. I mean, there was elephants and tigers and bears and pigs and deer and everything.
What area of India is this?
Right down in the south, in what used to be called Travancore, and it's now called Kerala. It's in the bottom bit on the Western Ghats, on the on the sort of escarpment that drops down to the round Cochin and where all the spices came from. Things like pepper and cardamom.
And you grow tea and just export it in its raw form, or?
Well, all the estates had factories, and the factories were built by the company. Every planter had to know the whole thing, from how you you pick the tea leaf off the bushes, and then the whole sort of process right through up to the point that they packed it in what you and I know as tea chests. I don't know whether they exist anymore, but every estate had somebody who did nothing but make tea chests. And then it was all shipped out. In the early days, before there was proper roads, there was a thing called a ropeway, and it was a circular piece of rope that went over a short distance between pylons, and it had sort of carriers hanging on the rope, which didn't have wheels, they clamped on, and the wheels were all on the pylons, and all the tea got put onto these baskets and taken to a place where there was another ropeway which dropped about 5,000 feet down to what they called bottom station, and from there it was shipped out on trains. But we were about 400 miles from Madras. But if we wanted to go to Madras, we had to drive to get down to a railhead, and there was the only railhead was on that side of the country, and the other side you drove down and you got to Cochin, 90 miles away. So we were very remote. We had everything that was needed in the district was either grown there or had to be imported.
And was the tea exported to England?
To Britain almost entirely.
Okay.
In fact, when the war came along, I think one of the biggest things that the planters could really do was keep growing tea. Dad wanted to get into the army and twice got as far as being called up. And both times they said no, he was a fairly senior planter by then. They had all the young ones were going off. They, much to his annoyance, he was made to stay and keep planting tea.
And so it was mostly, obviously, Indian workers. Were there many English people where you were, or British people?
Every estate was managed by a Brit, mainly Scots. And then, of course, later on, after partition, we started getting planters coming in who were Indian. In fact, Father had one of the first young Indian planters. I think one of his great strengths really was his knowledge of the language. He was determined to be able to talk to his people colloquially, completely, as you would in any country. And his ability to handle his labour force, I think, particularly when the bad times came, we got to the stage when there were unions and partition was coming and everything, and Dad was one of the few people who could really get in amongst them and knock their heads together without causing trouble. You know?
But so this is pre-partition and independence. Were there religious issues? Were they?
No, it really happened when the sort of Quit India came, which was much later on than when I was first talking about. Gandhi started the Quit India movement, not anywhere near us. I mean, we were very remote from it, but of course the unions who ran the various offices that tried to get things more Indianised, they all fought between themselves apart from anything else. One lot would be communist and another lot would be something else.